ex-husband and his mistress went to a party and unexpectedly ran into his stunning ex-wife. The music pulsed through the air, a vibrant mix of laughter and chatter that filled the lavish ballroom. Ethan adjusted his tie, glancing at his reflection in the ornate mirror. He looked every bit the part of a successful businessman, but beneath the polished exterior lay a man grappling with the weight of his choices. "Are you ready?" Sophie, his mistress, asked, her voice laced with excitement. She was stunning, with cascading blonde hair and a figure that turned heads. But tonight, Ethan felt a knot of anxiety in his stomach. He had promised himself he would enjoy this evening, but the thought of running into Maya, his ex-wife, loomed over him like a dark cloud. "Yeah, let's go," he replied, forcing a smile. As they stepped into the bustling party, the atmosphere buzzed with energy. But as Ethan scanned the crowd, his heart sank. What if Maya was here? The last thing he wanted was to confront the woman he had once loved, the woman he had hurt. But fate had a way of throwing curveballs, and tonight he was about to face the consequences of his past. As they mingled, Ethan tried to focus on Sophie, who was chatting animatedly with a group of friends. He admired her enthusiasm, but his mind kept drifting back to Maya. He hadn't seen her since the divorce, and the memories flooded back. Her laughter, her warmth, the way she had always believed in him. "Earth to Ethan!" Sophie waved a hand in front of his face, pulling him from his thoughts. "You okay?" "Yeah, just thinking," he said, forcing himself to engage. But as the night wore on, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. Then, as if summoned by his thoughts, he spotted her across the room. Maya stood there, radiant and confident, her dark hair cascading over her shoulders, wearing a stunning red dress that hugged her curves perfectly. Time seemed to freeze as their eyes locked, and Ethan felt a rush of emotions, regret, longing, and a hint of fear. "Who's that?" Sophie asked, following his gaze. Ethan swallowed hard, his heart racing. That's my ex-wife." The air around them shifted, and Ethan knew that this night was about to take a turn he never expected. Ethan had always been the kind of man who thrived on success. He had built a lucrative career in finance, climbing the corporate ladder with relentless ambition. But in his pursuit of success, he had lost sight of what truly mattered, his marriage to Maya. Their relationship had started off like a fairy tale. They were young, in love, and full of dreams. Maya had been his rock, supporting him through the long hours and stressful days. She had celebrated his victories and comforted him during setbacks, always believing in him when he struggled to believe in himself. But as Ethan's career took off, he became consumed by work, neglecting the very foundation of their relationship. Maya had tried to reach out to remind him of the love they once shared, but Ethan was too blinded by ambition to see the cracks forming in their marriage. He was often too busy with meetings, late-night calls, and business trips to notice the subtle changes in Maya's demeanor, the way her laughter had faded, the way her eyes no longer sparkled with the same joy. Eventually, the inevitable happened. Maya left, taking with her the love and warmth that had once filled their home. In the months that followed, Ethan had turned to Sophie, a younger woman who seemed to embody everything he thought he wanted. She was fun, carefree, and didn't remind him of the responsibilities that weighed him down. Sophie was a whirlwind of energy, always ready for spontaneous adventures and late-night escapades. At first, she was a welcome distraction from the pain of his divorce, a way to escape the guilt that gnawed at him. But as time passed, Ethan began to realize that Sophie was not the answer to his loneliness. She was merely a temporary fix. As he stood in the crowded ballroom, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had made a grave mistake. The lavish decorations, the clinking of glasses, and the laughter of guests felt distant and hollow. He glanced around, searching for a sense of belonging, but all he could see was the vibrant figure of Maya across the room, surrounded by friends. Her laughter rang out like music, a melody that tugged at his heartstrings. She looked happy, radiant even, and a pang of jealousy shot through him. "Let's get a drink," Sophie suggested, pulling him toward the bar. Her voice was bright, but Ethan felt a heaviness in his chest. As they walked, he couldn't help but steal glances at Maya, who was animatedly chatting with a group of people. The way her hair caught the light, the way her smile lit up her face, it all reminded him of the love they once shared. "Are you sure you're okay?" Sophie asked, her brow furrowing with concern. "You seem a bit distracted." "I'm fine," Ethan replied, forcing a smile. But the truth was, he was anything but fine. The sight of Maya stirred a whirlwind of emotions within him: regret, longing, and a deep sense of loss. He had thought he could move on, but seeing her again made him question everything. As they reached the bar, Ethan ordered a drink, trying to shake off the feeling of unease. Sophie chatted animatedly about her day, but Ethan found it hard to focus on her words. His mind kept drifting back to Maya, to the memories of their life together, the late-night talks, the shared dreams, the way they had once been inseparable. "Ethan, are you even listening?" Sophie's voice broke through his thoughts, and he turned to her, guilt washing over him. "Sorry, I was just thinking," he said, trying to sound sincere. "About what?" she pressed, her curiosity piqued. "Just work stuff," he lied, not wanting to reveal the turmoil in his heart. He could see the disappointment in Sophie's eyes, and it made him feel even worse. She deserved someone who was fully present, someone who could give her the attention she craved. As they sipped their drinks, Ethan felt a growing sense of unease. The party was supposed to be a celebration, a chance to unwind and enjoy the company of friends. But all he could think about was the void left by Maya's absence. He had tried to fill that void with Sophie, but it was becoming increasingly clear that no one could replace the love he had lost. "Let's dance!" Sophie exclaimed, pulling him onto the dance floor. The music was upbeat, and for a moment Ethan tried to lose himself in the rhythm. But as he moved, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was dancing in a dream, one where Maya was the ghost, haunting his every step. As they twirled and swayed, Ethan caught another glimpse of Maya. She was laughing, her head thrown back in joy, and for a moment, he felt a pang of nostalgia. He remembered the way they used to dance together, lost in their own world, oblivious to everything else. But now that world felt like a distant memory, one that he could never reclaim. "Ethan, are you okay?" Sophie asked again, her voice cutting through his reverie. "You seem really out of it tonight." "Yeah, I'm fine," he replied. But the words felt empty. He knew he needed to confront his feelings, to face the reality of what he had lost. But the thought of doing so terrified him. As the song ended, Ethan stepped back, needing a moment to breathe. "I think I need some air," he said, his voice strained. He could feel Sophie's eyes on him, but he didn't want to explain. He needed to clear his head to figure out what he truly wanted. He made his way to the balcony, the cool night air hitting him like a wave. He leaned against the railing, staring out at the city lights, lost in thought. The sounds of the party faded into the background, and for a moment, he felt a sense of peace. But that peace was short-lived. Just as he was beginning to collect his thoughts, he heard footsteps behind him. He turned to see Maya stepping onto the balcony, her expression a mix of surprise and concern. "Ethan?" she said softly, her voice cutting through the silence. "What are you doing out here?" "I needed a moment to think," he admitted, his heart racing. "This night has been overwhelming." Maya nodded, her gaze drifting to the city skyline. "I get that. It's strange being back in the same space after everything that happened. Yeah, Ethan replied, his heart. The night took a dramatic turn when Ethan found himself face to face with Maya. The air thickened with unspoken words as they stood mere feet apart, memories flooding back like a tidal wave. Maya's eyes widened in surprise, and for a moment, the noise of the party faded into the background. "Ethan," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The warmth of her presence was intoxicating, and he felt a rush of emotions he thought he had buried long ago. "Maya," he replied, his heart racing. He could see the years etched on her face, the strength she had gained since their separation. She looked beautiful, but there was a sadness in her eyes that tugged at his heart. "Is this your new life?" she asked, glancing at Sophie, who was now engrossed in conversation with another guest. The question hung in the air, heavy with implications. "Yeah, it is," Ethan admitted, feeling a pang of guilt. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Neither did I," Maya replied, her tone shifting. "But I'm glad I did. It's good to see you." The moment felt surreal, as if time had stood still. They exchanged pleasantries, but beneath the surface, a storm brewed. Ethan couldn't help but notice how Maya's laughter had a different ring to it now, one that didn't include him. Just then, Sophie approached, her smile faltering as she sensed the tension. "Everything okay?" she asked, her eyes darting between them. "Just catching up," Ethan said, forcing a smile. But inside he felt torn. The connection he once had with Maya was still there, simmering beneath the surface, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he had made a mistake. As the conversation continued, Maya shared snippets of her life since the divorce, her new job, her travels, and the friends she had made. Ethan listened, captivated by her resilience, but also haunted by the realization of what he had lost. Each word she spoke felt like a reminder of the life they could have had together, a life that had slipped through his fingers. "Maybe we should grab a drink sometime," Maya suggested, her eyes sparkling with a hint of nostalgia. "Just to catch up properly." "Yeah, I'd like that," Ethan replied, his heart racing at the thought. But as he glanced at Sophie, he felt a wave of guilt wash over him. He was standing at a crossroads, and the choices he made tonight could change everything. "Are you sure that's a good idea?" Sophie interjected, her voice laced with concern. "I mean, you two have a history." Ethan felt the tension rise, the air thick with unspoken words. "It's just a drink, Sophie," he said, trying to keep his tone light. "We're just catching up." But Sophie's expression hardened. "It doesn't feel like just catching up. It feels like you're reopening old wounds." Maya stepped back slightly, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. "I didn't mean to cause any trouble," she said softly, her gaze flickering between them. "I just thought it would be nice to reconnect." "Maybe it's not the best time," Sophie said, her voice firm. "We're at a party, and I don't want to make things awkward." Ethan felt a surge of frustration. "I'm not trying to make things awkward, Sophie. I just want to be honest about my feelings." "Honest?" Sophie shot back, her voice rising. "You mean honest about the fact that you still have feelings for her?" The words hung in the air, heavy with implications. Ethan felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He had to confront the truth, but he also didn't want to hurt Sophie. "Let's just take a step back," Maya suggested, her voice calm. "I didn't mean to create tension. Maybe we can talk later." "Yeah, maybe," Ethan said, feeling the conflict within him. He wanted to explore the connection with Maya, but he also didn't want to hurt Sophie. The night had taken a turn he hadn't anticipated, and he felt the weight of his choices pressing down on him. As Maya stepped away, Ethan felt a sense of loss wash over him. He had been given a glimpse of what could have been, and now he was left with the reality of his decisions. He turned to Sophie, who was watching him with a mixture of hurt and anger. "Ethan, I need you to be honest with me," she said, her voice steady. "What do you really want?" He opened his mouth to respond, but the words caught in his throat. He didn't know what he wanted anymore. The connection with Maya was undeniable, but he also cared for Sophie. The night had become a whirlwind of emotions, and he felt like he was losing control. The atmosphere shifted as Ethan and Maya exchanged numbers, a silent agreement hanging in the air. Sophie, oblivious to the undercurrents, pulled Ethan away to mingle with other guests. But the encounter lingered in his mind, igniting a conflict he hadn't anticipated. As the night progressed, Ethan found it increasingly difficult to focus on Sophie. Her laughter felt distant, and he couldn't shake the image of Maya from his thoughts. The tension between his past and present grew unbearable, and he felt like a man caught in a storm. "Are you even listening to me?" Sophie snapped, her frustration evident. "You've been so distant tonight." "I'm sorry, I ran into someone I didn't expect to see," Ethan replied, trying to explain without revealing too much. "Who?" Sophie pressed, her curiosity piqued. "Just an old friend," he said, avoiding her gaze. But Sophie wasn't satisfied. She could sense the shift in his demeanor, and it only fueled her anger. "Old friend or an old flame?" she shot back, her voice rising above the music. The eyes of nearby guests turned toward them, and Ethan felt a flush of embarrassment. "It's not like that," he insisted. But the words felt hollow. The truth was, he didn't know what it was like anymore. The connection with Maya had stirred something deep within him, and he couldn't ignore it. As the night wore on, Ethan found himself retreating to the balcony for some fresh air. The cool breeze brushed against his skin, offering a moment of clarity. He leaned against the railing, staring out at the city lights, lost in thought. "Ethan?" a familiar voice called out. He turned to see Maya stepping onto the balcony, her expression a mix of surprise and concern. "What are you doing out here?" she asked, joining him. The warmth of her presence sent a jolt through him, and he felt a rush of emotions he had tried to suppress. "I needed a moment to think," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "This night has been overwhelming." Maya nodded, her gaze drifting to the city skyline. "I get that. It's strange being back in the same space after everything that happened." "Yeah," Ethan replied, his heart racing. "I didn't expect to see you here. It's been a long time." "It has," she said softly, her eyes meeting his. "I've missed this city. I've missed us." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Ethan felt a pang of longing, memories flooding back. Moments of laughter, shared dreams, and the love that had once defined their relationship. But the weight of their past also loomed large, a reminder of the pain that had driven them apart. "Maya," he began, but she held up a hand, cutting him off. "Let's not go there right now," she said, her voice steady but tinged with sadness. "We're both in different places now." "Are we?" Ethan challenged, his heart pounding. "I mean, I thought I was moving on, but seeing you tonight, it's like a part of me never left." Maya looked away, her expression conflicted. "I've moved on too, Ethan. I've built a life without you, but that doesn't mean it's easy to forget." The tension between them crackled like electricity, and Ethan felt the pull of their shared history. "I know I hurt you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I never wanted to lose you." "Then why did you?" she asked, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You chose your career over us. You pushed me away." "I thought I was doing what was best for us," he replied, desperation creeping into his voice. "I thought success would make everything better." "Success doesn't fill the void, Ethan," she said, her voice firm. "It doesn't replace love or connection. You learned that the hard way." The truth of her words hit him like a punch to the gut. He had chased after success, thinking it would bring him happiness. But all it had done was isolate him. He had lost the one person who had truly understood him. Just then, Sophie appeared at the balcony door, her expression a mix of annoyance and concern. "Ethan, there you are. I've been looking for you. What's going on?" Ethan felt a wave of panic wash over him. He didn't want to hide his feelings, but he also didn't want to hurt Sophie. "Just catching up with an old friend," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Old friend?" Sophie raised an eyebrow, her tone skeptical. "It looks more like a private conversation to me." "Everything's fine," Ethan insisted. But he could see the tension in Maya's posture as she stepped back, creating distance between them. "Let's go back inside," Sophie said, her voice clipped. "I don't want to be out here all night." As they turned to leave, Ethan glanced back at Maya, their eyes locking for a brief moment. In that instant, he felt the weight of their unspoken words, the unresolved feelings that hung between them like a fragile thread. "Take care, Ethan," Maya said softly, her voice barely audible over the music. "I hope you find what you're looking for." With that, she stepped back into the party, leaving Ethan standing on the balcony, torn between two worlds. The night had taken a turn he never expected, and as he followed Sophie back inside, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was on the brink of a decision that would change everything. Now, the party continued to swirl around Ethan as he re-entered the ballroom, but he felt like an outsider looking in. Sophie was chatting animatedly with a group of guests, her laughter ringing out, but Ethan couldn't focus on anything but the conversation he had just had with Maya. He felt a mix of regret and longing, the weight of his past pressing down on him like a heavy fog. As he scanned the room, he caught sight of Maya again, standing across the dance floor, her laughter mingling with the music. She was surrounded by friends, but there was a lightness in her demeanor that made his heart ache. Just then, Sophie turned to him, her expression brightening. "Let's dance!" she exclaimed, grabbing his hand and pulling him toward the center of the room. Ethan forced a smile, but his mind was still with Maya. As they swayed to the music, Sophie leaned in closer, her voice low. "You seem distracted. Is everything okay?" "Yeah, just a lot on my mind," he replied, trying to sound convincing. But the truth was, he was grappling with the realization that he still had feelings for Maya. The connection they had shared was not something he could easily dismiss. "Is it about that woman you were talking to?" Sophie asked, her tone shifting. "You know I don't like the way you looked at her." Ethan felt a pang of guilt. "It's complicated," he admitted, his heart racing. "She's my ex-wife." Sophie's eyes widened in surprise. "Your ex-wife? Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't want to bring it up," he said, his voice low. "It's been years, and I thought I had moved on." "Clearly you haven't," she shot back, her frustration evident. "You can't just pretend that part of your life doesn't exist. It's affecting us." Ethan felt the tension rising between them, and he knew she was right. He had been trying to bury his feelings, but they were resurfacing with a vengeance. "I'm sorry, Sophie. I didn't mean to hurt you." "Maybe you need to figure out what you really want," she said, her voice softening. "Because right now, it feels like you're stuck between two worlds." As the music faded, Ethan felt a sense of urgency. He needed to confront his feelings for Maya and decide what he truly wanted. "I think I need some air," he said, stepping away from Sophie before she could respond. He made his way back to the balcony, the cool night air hitting him like a wave. He leaned against the railing, trying to collect his thoughts. The city lights twinkled below, but all he could see was Maya's face. The way her eyes sparkled when she laughed, the warmth of her presence that he had missed so much. Just then he heard footsteps behind him. He turned to see Maya stepping out onto the balcony again, her expression cautious. "I didn't expect to see you out here," she said, her voice soft. Neither did I, Ethan replied, his heart racing. I needed to think. About us? She asked, her gaze steady. About everything, he admitted, feeling vulnerable. I thought I had moved on, but seeing you tonight, it's like all those feelings came rushing back. Maya took a step closer, her expression conflicted. Ethan, we can't just pretend that everything is the same as it was. We've both changed. I know, he said, desperation creeping into his voice. But I can't help but wonder what could have been if I hadn't let you go. The air between them crackled with tension, and Maya looked away, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I've built a life without you, Ethan. I've learned to be happy on my own. I don't want to disrupt that, he said, his heart aching. But I also don't want to lose you again. Just then the door swung open, and Sophie stepped onto the balcony, her expression a mix of annoyance and concern. What's going on? She demanded, her eyes darting between them. Ethan felt a rush of panic. He didn't want to hurt Sophie, but he also couldn't deny the connection he felt with Maya. We were just talking, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Talking? Or reminiscing? Sophie shot back, her voice rising. Because it looks like you two have a lot more to discuss than just small talk. Maya stepped back, her expression pained. Maybe I should go, she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. No, don't, Ethan said, reaching out to her. But Maya had already turned away, stepping back into the party, leaving him standing on the balcony, torn between two women and the choices he had made. Ethan? What the hell? Sophie demanded, her frustration boiling over. You need to figure this out. I won't be a second choice. I'm not trying to make you a second choice, he replied, his voice strained. But I can't ignore what I feel for Maya. Then maybe you need to decide who you really want, Sophie said, her voice cold. Because I won't stick around while you play games with your past. With that, she turned and walked back inside, leaving Ethan alone on the balcony, the weight of his choices crashing down on him. He felt lost, caught in a whirlwind of emotions, and he knew that he had to confront the truth of his heart before it was too late. Ethan stood on the balcony, the cool night air swirling around him as he grappled with the chaos of his emotions. The party continued inside, laughter and music echoing through the open door, but he felt like he was in a different world, one where he had to make a choice that could change everything. He took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside him. Maya had stirred feelings he thought he had buried long ago, and now he was faced with the reality of what he had lost. The connection they once shared was still alive, flickering like a candle in the dark, and he couldn't ignore it any longer. As he stepped back inside, the atmosphere felt charged. Sophie was talking animatedly with a group of guests, but her eyes flicked to Ethan with a mixture of concern and frustration. He could feel the tension radiating from her, and it only added to the weight on his shoulders. Ethan, a voice called out, breaking through his thoughts. It was Maya, standing at the edge of the crowd, her gaze locked onto his. She looked beautiful, but there was a vulnerability in her eyes that tugged at his heart. Can we talk? She asked, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. Yeah, of course, he replied, his heart racing as he followed her to a quieter corner of the room. The noise of the party faded into the background, and for a moment, it felt like they were the only two people in the world. Listen, I didn't mean to interrupt your night, Maya began, her voice soft. I need to know where we stand. Ethan felt a rush of emotions. I don't know, Maya. Seeing you again has made me realize how much I've missed you. But I also don't want... Ethan felt a rush of emotions. I don't know, Maya. Seeing you again has made me realize how much I've missed you. But I also don't want to hurt Sophie. She's been there for me, and I don't want to betray her trust. Maya took a step closer, her eyes searching his. I understand that, but you need to be honest with yourself. You can't keep living in two worlds. It's not fair to anyone. He nodded, feeling the weight of her words. You're right. I've been avoiding the truth for too long. I thought I could move on, but every time I see you, it's like a part of me comes alive again. Then why are you hesitating? Maya asked, her voice steady but filled with emotion. If you still have feelings for me, you need to confront that. You owe it to yourself and to Sophie. Just then, Sophie appeared at the edge of their conversation, her expression a mix of anger and hurt. What's going on here? She demanded, her voice sharp. I thought we were having a good time, but it looks like you two are having a private moment. Ethan felt his heart sink. Sophie, it's not what you think, he started, but she cut him off. Then what is it? She shot back, her eyes blazing. Because it looks like you're about to make a choice, and I deserve to know where I stand. Maya stepped back, sensing the tension. Maybe I should go, she said quietly, her voice trembling. No, don't, Ethan said, reaching out to her. This is between us. I need to figure this out. Figure what out? Sophie interjected, her voice rising. You can't just string us both along. You need to make a decision, Ethan. The room felt like it was closing in on him, the weight of their expectations pressing down. Ethan took a deep breath, trying to gather his thoughts. I care about both of you, but I can't keep pretending that everything is fine when it's not. Then what do you want? Sophie asked, her voice softer now, but still laced with hurt. Ethan looked at Maya, then back at Sophie. I want to be honest. I want to understand what I truly feel. I thought I could move on, but seeing Maya again has made me realize that I still have unresolved feelings. Sophie's expression shifted, a mix of anger and sadness. So what does that mean for us? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know, Ethan admitted, his heart racing. I need time to think. I don't want to hurt you, but I also can't ignore what's in my heart. The tension in the air was palpable, and Maya stepped forward, her voice steady. Ethan, you need to take the time to figure this out. But you also need to be fair to Sophie. She deserves to know where she stands. Sophie crossed her arms, her expression hardening. I deserve more than being a backup plan, Ethan. If you're still hung up on your ex-wife, then maybe we need to reevaluate what we have. Ethan felt a wave of panic wash over him. I don't want to lose you, Sophie. But I can't pretend that everything is okay when it's not. Then maybe you need to make a choice, she said, her voice trembling. Because I won't be part of a love triangle. With that, Sophie turned and walked away, leaving Ethan standing there, torn between two women and the choices he had made. The weight of the moment pressed down on him, and he felt a sense of urgency to confront his feelings. Ethan, Maya said softly, breaking the silence, you need to decide what you want. I can't be the reason you hurt someone else. He looked at her, his heart racing. I know, I need to figure this out before it's too late. As Maya stepped back, he felt a sense of loss wash over him. The connection they had shared was still there, but the reality of the situation loomed large. He had to make a choice, and he knew it wouldn't be easy. The party continued around him, but Ethan felt like he was in a bubble, isolated from the laughter and music. He needed to make a decision, and the weight of that choice pressed heavily on his chest. He stepped away from the crowd, seeking solace in the quiet of the balcony once more. The city lights twinkled below, but all he could see was the turmoil in his heart. He had to confront the truth of his feelings, and he knew he couldn't delay any longer. Just then, Maya appeared at the balcony door again, her expression resolute. Ethan, we need to talk, she said, her voice firm. Okay, he replied, his heart racing. I'm ready. Are you? she asked, her eyes searching his. Because I don't want to be the reason you hurt Sophie. She deserves to know the truth. I know, he said, feeling the weight of her words. But I also can't ignore what I feel for you. It's like a part of me has been missing since we separated. Maya took a deep breath, her expression softening. I've missed you too, but we can't just jump back into what we had. We've both changed. I understand that, Ethan replied, desperation creeping into his voice. But I can't help but wonder what could have been if I hadn't let you go. Then let's not make the same mistakes again, Maya said, her voice steady, but filled with emotion. We need to be honest about what we want, and we can't rush into anything without considering the consequences. Ethan nodded, feeling the gravity of her words. You're right. I've been so caught up in my feelings that I haven't thought about how this affects everyone involved. I need to be fair to Sophie. Exactly, Maya replied, her eyes locking onto his. You owe it to her to be honest about your feelings. If you still have unresolved emotions for me, it's not fair to keep her in the dark. The tension between them was palpable, and Ethan felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He had to make a choice, and it had to be made now. I need to talk to Sophie, he said, determination flooding his veins. I can't let this linger any longer. Are you sure? Maya asked. Concern etched on her face. It might hurt her. I know, he replied, his heart heavy. But it's better to be honest than to let this fester. I can't keep pretending everything is fine when it's not. With a final glance at Maya, he turned and headed back inside, the noise of the party washing over him like a wave. He scanned the room, searching for Sophie. She was standing by the bar, her arms crossed, her expression a mix of hurt and anger. Sophie, he called out, making his way through the crowd. She looked up, her eyes narrowing as he approached. What do you want, Ethan? She asked, her voice cold. I need to talk to you, he said, his heart racing. It's important. Is it about her? Sophie shot back, her voice rising. Because if it is, I don't want to hear it. It is about Maya, but it's also about us, he replied, desperation creeping into his voice. I can't keep pretending that everything is okay when it's not. Then what do you want? She demanded, her eyes flashing with anger. Do you want to go back to her? Is that what this is about? No, Ethan exclaimed, his voice firm. I don't want to go back to the past. But I need to be honest about my feelings. Seeing Maya again has made me realize that I still have unresolved emotions for her. Sophie's expression shifted, a mix of hurt and disbelief. So what does that mean for us? She asked, her voice trembling. It means I need to take a step back and figure out what I truly want, he said, his heart aching. I care about you, but I can't lead you on while I'm still grappling with my feelings for Maya. The silence that followed was deafening. Sophie looked away, her expression pained. So you're saying you want to break up? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't want to hurt you, but I think it's the best thing for both of us, Ethan replied, his heart heavy with regret. You deserve someone who can give you their whole heart. And right now, I can't do that. Tears welled in Sophie's eyes, and she took a step back, her expression a mix of anger and sadness. I can't believe this is happening, she said, her voice shaking. I thought we were building something together. We were, Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion. But I can't ignore the truth. I need to be honest with myself and with you. Fine, Sophie said, her voice cold. If that's how you feel, then maybe it's for the best. I won't be a second choice. With that, she turned and walked away, leaving Ethan standing there, his heart shattered. He felt a mix of relief and sorrow, knowing he had made the right choice, but also feeling the weight of the loss. As he turned back toward the balcony, he spotted Maya standing there, her expression a mix of concern and understanding. "How did it go?" she asked softly. "It's done," Ethan replied, his voice heavy. "I told her the truth." Maya stepped closer, her eyes searching his. "And how do you feel?" "I feel free, but also heartbroken," he admitted. "I didn't want to hurt her, but I knew I had to be honest." Maya nodded, her expression softening. "You did the right thing, Ethan. It's not easy, but honesty is the foundation of any relationship." As they stood together on the balcony, the weight of the moment hung in the air. Ethan felt a sense of clarity wash over him. He had made a choice, and now it was time to confront the feelings he had for Maya. "Can we start over?" he asked, his heart racing. "I know we can't go back to what we had, but I want to explore what's possible between us now." Maya looked at him, her eyes filled with hope and uncertainty. "I'd like that," she said softly. "But we need to take it slow. We both have scars from the past." "Agreed," Ethan replied, feeling a sense of relief. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes to rebuild that trust." As they stood together, the city lights twinkling below, Ethan felt a renewed sense of purpose. He had faced the truth, and now he was ready to embrace whatever came next. The atmosphere on the balcony shifted as Ethan and Maya stood together, the weight of their past slowly lifting. The party continued inside, but for them, time felt suspended. Let's take this one step at a time," Maya suggested, her voice steady. "We both need to heal and figure out what we want." "Absolutely," Ethan agreed, feeling a sense of hope. "I want to be honest with you about everything. I don't want to rush into anything without understanding what we're both feeling." Maya smiled softly, her eyes sparkling with a hint of the warmth he had missed. "I appreciate that. It's been a long time since we've had a real conversation." As they talked, Ethan felt the connection between them rekindle, the spark that had once ignited their love beginning to glow again. They shared stories of their lives since the divorce, the challenges they had faced, and the lessons they had learned. "I've grown a lot since we separated," Maya admitted, her voice thoughtful. "I've learned to stand on my own 2 feet, and I've found joy in my work and my friendships." "I'm glad to hear that," Ethan replied, his heart swelling with pride. "You deserve happiness, Maya. I always wanted that for you." As they continued to talk, Ethan felt a sense of peace wash over him. He had faced the truth of his feelings, and now he was ready to embrace the possibility of a future with Maya. But just as he was beginning to feel hopeful, Sophie reappeared at the balcony door, her expression unreadable. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. Ethan felt a rush of anxiety. "Of course," he said, stepping away from Maya. "What's on your mind?" "I just wanted to say that I'm sorry for how I reacted earlier," Sophie said, her voice softening. "I was hurt and angry, and I didn't handle it well." "I appreciate that," Ethan replied, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. "I didn't want to hurt you," Ethan continued, his voice sincere. "You've been an important part of my life, and I never meant for things to end this way." Sophie nodded, her expression softening. "I know. It's just hard to accept that you still have feelings for her. I thought we were building something real." "We were," Ethan said, his heart heavy. "But I realized that I wasn't being fair to either of us. I needed to confront my feelings for Maya and be honest about where I stand." Sophie took a deep breath, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I get it. I just wish it hadn't come to this. I thought we had a future together." "Me too," he admitted, feeling the weight of regret. "But I can't ignore the truth. You deserve someone who can give you their whole heart, and right now, I can't do that." "Maybe it's for the best," Sophie said, her voice trembling. "I need to focus on myself and what I want. I can't keep waiting for you to figure things out. Ethan felt a pang of sadness at her words. I understand. I want you to be happy, even if it's not with me. Thank you for being honest, she replied, her voice steady. I hope you and Maya find what you're looking for. With that, Sophie turned and walked away, leaving Ethan standing there, a mix of relief and sorrow washing over him. He had made the right choice, but it didn't make the pain of losing Sophie any easier. As he turned back to Maya, he found her watching him with a mixture of concern and understanding. Are you okay? She asked softly. Yeah, I think so, Ethan replied, his heart heavy. It's just hard to let go of someone who meant so much to me. I can only imagine, Maya said, stepping closer. But you did the right thing. You were honest with her, and that takes courage. Thanks, he said, feeling a sense of gratitude for her support. I just hope she finds happiness. Me too, Maya replied, her eyes searching his. But right now, we need to focus on us and what this means moving forward. Ethan nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. You're right. I want to explore what we can be together, but I also want to take it slow. We both have a lot to process. Agreed, Maya said, her smile returning. Let's take our time and see where this leads us. As they stood together on the balcony, the city lights twinkling below, Ethan felt a sense of hope. He had faced the truth of his feelings, and now he was ready to embrace the possibility of a future with Maya. The party continued to swirl around them, but Ethan and Maya felt like they were in their own world, a bubble of possibility and hope. They talked and laughed, sharing stories and dreams, rediscovering the connection that had once brought them together. As the night wore on, Ethan felt a sense of peace settle over him. He had made difficult choices, but he knew they were the right ones. He was ready to embrace the future, whatever it might hold. Let's get out of here, Maya suggested, her eyes sparkling with mischief. I don't want to spend the rest of the night surrounded by people who don't understand what we've been through. Where do you want to go? Ethan asked, intrigued. Let's take a walk by the river, she said, her voice filled with excitement. I love the way the city looks at night, and I want to share that with you. Sounds perfect, he replied, feeling a rush of anticipation. They slipped out of the party, hand in hand, the cool night air wrapping around them like a comforting embrace. As they walked along the riverbank, the city lights reflecting off the water, Ethan felt a sense of freedom. He had let go of the past, and now he was ready to embrace the future with Maya by his side. I've missed this, Maya said, her voice soft. Just being able to talk and connect without all the noise. Me too, Ethan replied, his heart swelling with emotion. I've realized how much I took for granted. I want to make things right this time. They stopped at a quiet spot along the river, the sound of the water lapping against the shore creating a soothing backdrop. Ethan turned to Maya, his heart racing. I know we have a lot to figure out, but I want to explore this, whatever this is between us. Maya smiled, her eyes shining with warmth. I want that too, Ethan. But let's take it slow. We both need to heal and grow. Agreed, he said, feeling a sense of relief wash over him. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to rebuild that trust. As they stood together, the moonlight illuminating their faces, Ethan felt a sense of hope for the future. They had both faced their pasts, and now they were ready to embrace the possibilities that lay ahead. But just as they leaned in closer, a figure emerged from the shadows, interrupting their moment. It was Sophie, her expression a mix of determination and hurt. I need to talk to you, Ethan, she said, her voice steady. Ethan felt his heart drop. The night had taken a turn he hadn't anticipated, and he knew that the choices he had made were about to be tested once again. As Sophie stepped closer, the tension in the air thickened. Ethan glanced at Maya, who looked equally surprised and concerned. The unresolved feelings and the choices they had made hung in the balance, and he knew that this confrontation could change everything. "Ethan, I need you to hear me out," Sophie said, her voice firm. "There's something you need to know about your past, and it could change everything." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. The night had promised hope and new beginnings, but now it threatened to unravel everything he had just begun to rebuild. As the moon hung high above them, casting a silver glow over the river, Ethan braced himself for the storm that was about to unfold, knowing that the choices he made in this moment would define the path ahead for all three of them.